In every family, there's a story behind a name. Sometimes it's honoring a grandparent, sometimes it's inspired by a favorite place or person. But what happened on the Family Feud stage in September 2024 would become one of the most unforgettable moments in the show's history. A 19-year-old single mother named Jasmine Rodriguez was about to share the truth behind her daughter's name, and what she revealed would be so powerful, so emotionally overwhelming, that even Steve Harvey, the man who had seen it all, would have to walk off stage to compose himself. Before we dive into this incredible story, if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because we share real stories about real people that will inspire you and maybe even change how you see the world. And if you're already part of our family, drop a like on this video to help us reach more people with these powerful messages. Now, let's get into what happened that day. The atmosphere at the Family Feud studio in Atlanta was electric that September morning. The Rodriguez family from Houston, Texas, had traveled over 800 miles to compete on the show. For most of them, it was a fun adventure, a chance to be on television and maybe win some money. But for Jasmine Rodriguez, the youngest member of the family at just 19 years old, this appearance meant something much deeper. Jasmine stood on stage wearing a simple but elegant navy blue dress that her mother had helped her pick out. Her long dark hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she held herself with a quiet confidence that seemed unusual for someone so young. But what really caught people's attention was the delicate gold necklace she wore, with a name pendant that spelled out Espiranza in beautiful script letters. The Rodriguez family was facing off against the Thompson family from Tennessee, and the game had been close from the start. Steve Harvey was in his element, cracking jokes, doing his signature reactions, and keeping the audience entertained with his quick wit and genuine warmth. He had no idea that in just a few minutes, this would become one of the most emotional episodes he had ever filmed. The game progressed normally through the first few rounds. The Rodriguez family was doing well, with Jasmine's mother, Maria, and her aunt Elena answering several questions correctly. Jasmine had been quiet for most of the game, letting her more outgoing family members take the lead. But Steve noticed her. He had a gift for reading people, and something about this young woman's eyes told him she had a story to tell. During a commercial break, Steve walked over to the Rodriguez family side and started his usual friendly banter. He loved getting to know the contestants, finding out what made them tick, what brought them to the show. "So, Jasmine," Steve said with his warm smile, "I noticed you've been pretty quiet over here. You gonna help your family out when we come back?" Jasmine smiled shyly. "I'll try my best, Mr. Harvey." "Mr. Harvey? Girl, you make me sound old. Just call me Steve." The audience laughed, but Jasmine's mother, Maria, put her arm around her daughter's shoulders in a protective gesture that Steve noticed. There was something there, something deeper than just a family playing a game show. When they came back from commercial, the game had reached a crucial point. The Rodriguez family was ahead by just 40 points going into the final round. Steve announced it was time for fast money, and the family had to choose who would play first and who would go second. Without hesitation, Maria looked at her daughter. "Jasmine should go second," she said firmly. "She's the strongest one here." Jasmine looked surprised. "Mama, are you sure? Maybe Tia Elena should go." But Maria shook her head, tears already forming in her eyes. "No, mija, it should be you. It needs to be you." Steve picked up on the emotion in Maria's voice. "Okay, we've got some family dynamics happening here. I love it. So, Jasmine's going second. Who's going first?" Jasmine's uncle, Carlos, stepped forward. He was a jovial man in his 50s who had been cracking jokes all game long. "I'll take the heat, Steve. Let my niece bring us home." The first fast money round went well. Carlos scored 178 points, which was solid. That meant Jasmine needed just 22 points to win the $20,000. The odds were in their favor. As they brought Jasmine to the podium for her turn, Steve noticed she was touching her necklace, the one with the name Espiranza. She seemed to be drawing strength from it. "Okay, Jasmine," Steve said, getting into position. "Your Uncle Carlos got you 178 points. You need 22 to win $20,000. You ready?" Jasmine nodded, taking a deep breath. "I'm ready." "All right, let's do this. 20 seconds on the clock." The questions began, and Jasmine answered each one with calm precision. When the buzzer sounded, Steve looked impressed. Okay, good job. Let's see how you did." As they went through her answers one by one, Jasmine had done it. She had scored well over the 22 points needed. The Rodriguez family had won. The family erupted in celebration, hugging each other and jumping up and down. But Steve noticed that Jasmine wasn't celebrating quite as enthusiastically as the others. She was smiling, yes, but there was something else in her expression. Something that looked like relief mixed with sadness. As the celebration died down, Steve did what he often did with winning families. He wanted to know more about them. Okay, Rodriguez family, you just won $20,000. Congratulations." The audience applauded loudly. Steve continued, "Now, before y'all leave this stage, I want to know more about this beautiful family. Maria, you're the mama bear here. Tell me about your family." Maria, still wiping tears from her eyes, spoke with pride. "Well, Steve, we're a close family from Houston. We've been through a lot together, but we always stick together. That's what family does." I love that, Steve said. "And Jasmine, you're the youngest one here, right? How old are you, baby?" "I'm 19, Mr. Harvey. Steve." The audience laughed at her correction. Steve smiled. 19 years old. So you're probably in college, right? What are you studying?" Jasmine hesitated for just a moment. "Actually, I'm not in college right now. I'm a full-time mom." There was a shift in the atmosphere. Steve's expression changed from jovial to more serious, more interested. "A full-time mom? At 19? "Yes, sir. I have a 2-year-old daughter." Steve nodded slowly. He wasn't judging, just processing. "Okay, that's a big responsibility for someone your age. What's your daughter's name?" Jasmine's hand went to her necklace again. "Her name is Espiranza." "Espiranza," Steve repeated. "That's beautiful. That means hope in Spanish, right?" "Yes," Jasmine said quietly. "It means hope." Steve was about to move on to another family member when something stopped him. Maybe it was the way Jasmine said it. Maybe it was the tears he saw forming in Maria's eyes again. Or maybe it was just his instinct that there was more to this story. "Jasmine," Steve said gently, "I get the feeling there's a story behind that name. Am I right?" The studio fell quiet. Jasmine looked at her mother, who nodded encouragingly. Jasmine took a deep breath. "Yes, there's a story." "You want to share it with us?" Steve asked. "You don't have to if you don't want to." "No," Jasmine said, her voice stronger now. "I want to. I think people need to hear it." Steve moved closer to Jasmine, giving her his full attention. The cameras zoomed in. Everyone in the studio could sense that something important was about to happen. "When I was 16 years old," Jasmine began, her voice wavering slightly, "I made some choices that I'm not proud of. I got involved with a boy who I thought loved me. I thought we were going to be together forever, you know, the way you think when you're steen and you don't really understand what love is yet." Steve nodded, not interrupting. "When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. I was 16 years old, still in high school, and my whole life was about to change. The boy, the father, he wanted nothing to do with it. He told me to get rid of the baby. He said I would ruin both our lives if I didn't. Jasmine paused, wiping a tear from her cheek. Maria reached over and took her daughter's hand. My parents were disappointed. Not angry, but disappointed. I could see it in their eyes. I had been a good student, had plans to go to college, and now everything was different. But you know what they never did? They never stopped loving me. They never made me feel like I was a mistake or that my baby would be a mistake. Steve's eyes were glistening now. The audience was completely silent. The pregnancy was hard, Jasmine continued. Not just physically, but emotionally. I was scared, every single day. Scared I wouldn't be a good mom. Scared I had ruined my life. Scared my baby would grow up and hate me for bringing her into the world when I wasn't ready. I was so scared that I stopped hoping for anything good. But then, Jasmine's voice grew stronger. Then she was born. And the very second I held her in my arms, everything changed. She was so tiny, so perfect, and she looked at me with these big brown eyes, and I felt something I had never felt before. I felt hope, real hope. Hope that I could be the mother she deserved. Hope that my life wasn't over, but actually just beginning. Hope that all the bad choices I had made didn't define who I would become. The tears were flowing freely down Jasmine's face now, and Steve was openly crying too. Several audience members were wiping their eyes. "That's why I named her Espiranza," Jasmine said, "because she gave me hope when I had none. She saved my life, Mr. Harvey. I was in such a dark place, and this tiny little baby pulled me out of it. She made me want to be better, do better, be someone she could be proud of." Steve tried to speak but couldn't. He held up a finger as if to say, "Give me a minute." But the emotion was too much. For the first time in his decades of hosting, he turned and walked off the stage, his hand over his face. The audience wasn't sure what to do. The producers weren't sure what to do. But Maria knew exactly what to do. She pulled her daughter into a tight embrace while they waited for Steve to compose himself. It took almost a full minute before Steve walked back on stage. His eyes were red, and he wasn't even trying to hide the fact that he had been crying. "I'm sorry," Steve said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm sorry. In all my years of doing this show, I have never had to walk off like that. But Jasmine, your story, baby, your story just hit me right here." He put his hand over his heart. "You see," Steve continued, looking directly at Jasmine, "I have daughters. And the thought of any young woman going through what you went through, feeling that scared and alone, it just breaks my heart. But you know what? You did something incredibly brave. You chose life. You chose hope. And you chose to be the mother your daughter needed, even when you were still basically a child yourself." The audience began to applaud, but Steve held up his hand. "No, wait. I'm not done. Jasmine, I want you to understand something. You said you made bad choices. Okay, maybe you did. But you know what? We all make bad choices. Every single person in this room, including me, has made choices we regret. The difference between people who succeed in life and people who don't isn't whether they make mistakes. It's what they do after they make those mistakes." Steve walked closer to Jasmine. "You took a situation that could have destroyed you, and you turned it into something beautiful. You took your fear and your shame and your disappointment, and you transformed it into hope. That's not just brave, Jasmine. That's miraculous." Maria was sobbing now, as was most of Jasmine's family. The Thompson family, their competitors, were crying too. The camera operators, the producers, the audience members, everyone was moved by this raw, honest moment. "Can I tell you something else?" Steve asked Jasmine. When you said your daughter's name is Espiranza and it means hope, I thought that was beautiful. But now I know it's more than beautiful. It's prophetic. Because that little girl didn't just give you hope. She's going to give hope to everyone who hears this story. Every young mother who feels like she made a mistake. Every teenager who's scared and doesn't know what to do. Every person who thinks their life is over because of one bad choice. They're going to hear your story and feel hope. Steve turned to address the cameras directly. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what Family Feud is really about. It's not about the games or the money. It's about families and their stories. It's about real people dealing with real life. And sometimes, if we're lucky, we get to witness moments like this that remind us what really matters. He turned back to Jasmine. Now, you said you're a full-time mom and you're not in college right now. Is that because you can't afford it? Or because you're focused on raising Espiranza? Jasmine wiped her eyes. A little bit of both. I want to go to college. I want to become a nurse. I want Espiranza to see that her mama didn't give up on her dreams. But right now, with childcare costs and everything else, it's just not possible. I work part-time at a restaurant when my mom can watch Espiranza, and I'm saving every penny I can. Steve nodded slowly, and there was a look in his eyes that the producers recognized. He was about to do something unscripted, something from the heart. Jasmine, your family just won $20,000 on Family Feud. That's your money. You earned it. But I want to do something else. The audience stirred with anticipation. Through my foundation, we help young people get education and opportunities, and I want to personally make sure that you get to pursue your dream of becoming a nurse. We're going to set up a scholarship fund for you that will cover your tuition, your books, and your childcare costs while you're in school. The audience erupted in applause and cheers. Jasmine looked shocked, her mouth open in disbelief. Maria grabbed her daughter and hugged her so tightly it looked like she might never let go. Mr. Harvey, Jasmine managed to say through her tears, I can't. This is too much. No, baby, Steve said firmly. It's not too much. It's exactly enough. Because you know what? Espiranza deserves a mama who achieves her dreams. And your mama and your family deserve to see you succeed. And every young woman out there who's in the situation you were in deserves to see that there is hope, there is a future, and there are people who will help them get there. Steve continued, his voice filled with passion. I'm tired of living in a world where we judge young mothers instead of helping them. I'm tired of seeing teenagers who make one mistake and then feel like their entire lives are ruined. Jasmine, you stood up here on national television and shared your truth, even though you knew some people might judge you. That takes courage, and that courage deserves to be rewarded. Jasmine was crying so hard she could barely speak. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. But Steve wasn't done. There's one more thing. Where's little Espiranza right now? She's backstage with my grandmother, Jasmine said. Well, go get her. I want to meet this little girl who saved her mama's life. Maria quickly went backstage and returned moments later carrying a beautiful 2-year-old girl with curly dark hair and those big brown eyes Jasmine had described. The little girl looked around at all the lights and people with wonder. When she saw her mother, she reached out her arms. Mama! Jasmine took her daughter from Maria, holding her close. Espiranza laid her head on her mother's shoulder, and the image of this 19-year-old mother holding her toddler while crying tears of joy was so powerful that there wasn't a dry eye in the studio. Steve approached them gently. Hi, Espiranza. I'm Steve. Your mama just told me all about you. Espiranza peeked at him shyly, then hid her face in Jasmine's shoulder. Everyone laughed at the adorable gesture. She's beautiful, Steve said softly. Absolutely beautiful. And Jasmine, You look at this little girl, and you remember something. Every single day for the rest of your life, you remember that you gave her life, you gave her love, and you gave her a future. You were 17 years old and scared, but you made the right choice. You chose love over fear. You chose life over convenience. You chose hope over despair. Steve looked at the camera again. I want everyone watching this to understand something. This young woman right here, this 9-year-old mother, she's a hero. Not because she's perfect, not because she never made a mistake, but because when life got hard, she didn't give up. She kept going. She kept loving. She kept hoping. The applause was thunderous. The Thompson family, who had lost the game, were applauding just as hard as everyone else. This had transcended competition. This was about something bigger than a game show. As the taping came to an end, Steve did something else unusual. He asked the producers to keep the cameras rolling. I want to say something to all the young people watching this, Steve said seriously. If you're a teenager and you're pregnant, or you got someone pregnant and you're scared, I want you to know that your life is not over. It's not. Yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, you're going to face challenges that your friends don't have to face. But you can make it. With family support, with community support, with determination, you can make it. He gestured to Jasmine and her family. Look at this family right here. They didn't abandon their daughter when she needed them most. They stood by her, they helped her, they loved her. That's what family is supposed to do. Not judge, not condemn, but support and love. Steve turned to the parents in the audience. And if you're a parent and your teenager comes to you with news like this, I'm begging you, don't push them away. Don't make them feel like they've destroyed everything. Be there for them, guide them, help them, because in that moment, they need you more than they've ever needed you in their entire lives. Maria spoke up then, her voice strong despite the tears. Steve, can I say something? Of course. When Jasmine told me she was pregnant, my first feeling was shock, then disappointment, then fear, but you know what I realized? She wasn't looking at me for judgment. She was looking at me for help. And as a mother, that's what I'm here for, to help my children, no matter what situation they're in. Maria continued. These last 2 years have been hard, yes, but they've also been the most beautiful years of my life. Watching my daughter grow into a mother, watching her sacrifice everything for this baby, watching her work 2 jobs and still find time to play with Espiranza and read to her every night. I've never been more proud of anyone in my entire life. Steve was crying again. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about right there. That's love. That's family. That's hope. The episode eventually wrapped, but the impact of what had happened was just beginning. When the episode aired 6 weeks later, it immediately went viral. The clip of Steve walking off stage has been viewed over 50 million times on YouTube. The comments section was filled with thousands of stories from young mothers sharing their own experiences, from parents apologizing for judging their children too harshly, from teenagers saying they felt hope for the first time. Major news outlets picked up the story. Good Morning America invited Jasmine and her family on the show. Ellen DeGeneres saw the clip and also offered to help with Jasmine's education fund. Oprah mentioned it on her podcast, talking about the importance of supporting young mothers instead of shaming them. But perhaps the most impactful responses came from the young women themselves. Jasmine started receiving hundreds of messages from teenage mothers who said her story had changed their lives. Girls who had been contemplating giving up their babies or even ending their own lives said that seeing Jasmine's courage gave them hope. One message in particular moved Jasmine to tears. It was from a 16-year-old girl named Ashley from Ohio. Dear Jasmine, the message read, I'm 16 and 5 months pregnant. My boyfriend left me, and my parents were so angry they kicked me out. I've been staying with my friend's family, but I felt so alone and so ashamed. I was seriously considering ending my life because I couldn't see any way forward. Then I saw your story on Family Feud. I watched Steve Harvey walk off that stage because he was so moved by what you said, and I realized something. If your story could make a man like him cry, if your truth could touch that many people, then maybe my story matters too. Maybe my baby matters too. Maybe there's hope for me. I decided to keep fighting. I called my parents again, and this time we really talked. They're still upset, but they agreed to let me come home. They saw your story too, and I think it changed something in them. So, thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to tell your truth. You saved my life without even knowing it. And when my baby is born in 4 months, I'm going to name her Hope because that's what you gave me. When Jasmine shared this message on her social media, it received over 2 million likes and was shared hundreds of thousands of times. Steve Harvey reposted it with the comment, "This is why we do what we do. One story, one moment of truth can save a life." 3 months after the episode aired, Steve Harvey invited Jasmine back to his talk show for a follow-up. By this time, Jasmine had enrolled in nursing school, with all her expenses covered by the scholarship fund Steve's foundation had set up. She was getting straight A's while still being a full-time mom to Espiranza. "Jasmine, the last time we saw each other, I had to walk off my own stage because I was so moved by your story," Steve said with a laugh. "How have the last few months been for you?" Jasmine, looking more confident and relaxed than she had on Family Feud, smiled. "Life-changing doesn't even begin to describe it, Steve. Not just because of the money or the scholarship, but because of the response. I've heard from thousands of young mothers who felt alone and ashamed, and now they feel seen and supported. That means more to me than anything. Tell me about nursing school. How's that going?" "It's hard," Jasmine admitted. "I won't lie. Balancing school and being a mom to a 2-year-old is exhausting. Some days I study while Espiranza naps, and I do homework after she goes to bed. But every time I feel tired or overwhelmed, I look at her and remember why I'm doing this. I want her to see that education matters, that dreams matter, that you can overcome anything if you don't give up." Steve nodded appreciatively. "And what about the father? Is he in the picture at all?" Jasmine's expression became more serious. "No, he's not. And honestly, that's okay. I used to be angry about it, used to wish things were different. But I've realized that Espiranza has something better than an unwilling father. She has a whole family who loves her. She has my parents, my aunts and uncles, my grandmother. She has a village. And one day, when she's old enough to understand, I'll tell her the truth. I'll tell her that her father made a choice, but that his choice doesn't define her worth or her future." "That's mature of you," Steve said. "A lot of young people in your situation would be bitter." "I was bitter," Jasmine admitted. "For a long time, I was so angry. Angry at him for abandoning us, angry at myself for being naive, angry at the world for judging me. But you know what bitterness does? It poisons you. It doesn't hurt the person you're angry at. It only hurts you. So, I made a choice to let it go. Not for him, but for me and for Espiranza." The audience applauded this wisdom from someone so young. Steve continued, "I know you've been getting messages from young mothers all over the country. What do you tell them when they reach out to you?" "I tell them the truth," Jasmine said. "I tell them it's going to be hard. I don't sugarcoat it. Being a young mother is one of the hardest things you can do. You miss out on things your friends are doing. You have responsibilities they don't have. You face judgment from people who don't know your story. But I also tell them that it's worth it. That the love you feel for your child is worth every sacrifice. That seeing your baby smile makes the sleepless nights worth it. That watching them take their first steps, say their first words, give you their first hug, these moments are more valuable than any party you missed or any judgment you faced. Jasmine continued with passion in her voice. But most importantly, I tell them they're not alone. I tell them that making a mistake doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human. And being a young mother doesn't mean your life is over. It means your life is different, but different can still be beautiful. Steve was visibly moved again. You're 19 years old, but you have the wisdom of someone much older. Where does that come from? From struggle, Jasmine said simply. From having to grow up faster than I wanted to. From making hard choices and living with the consequences. From my mother, who showed me what real strength looks like. From Espiranza, who teaches me something new every day about love and patience and joy. Steve turned to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what growth looks like. This is what redemption looks like. This is what happens when a young person makes a mistake but doesn't let that mistake define them. He turned back to Jasmine. I have one more surprise for you. Jasmine looked nervous. Steve, you've already done so much. Shh, let me do this, Steve said with a grin. When your story aired, it touched a lot of people, including some people with resources who want to help. Several businesses in Houston reached out, and together we've created something for you. Steve gestured to the side of the stage, where a representative from a local childcare center walked out carrying a large ceremonial check and some documents. Jasmine Rodriguez, the woman said, on behalf of Little Scholars Childcare Center, we are offering you 5 years of free childcare for Espiranza. This covers all her care, while you're in nursing school, and even after you graduate and start working. Additionally, this check for $50,000 is from a group of anonymous donors who were moved by your story and want to make sure you and Espiranza have financial security while you complete your education. Jasmine stood up, her hands over her mouth in shock. She looked at Steve, at the woman with the check, at the audience, and then she just broke down crying. Steve walked over and hugged her while the audience gave a standing ovation. Through her tears, Jasmine managed to speak. I don't understand. Why are people being so kind to me? I'm just a regular person who made a mistake. Steve pulled back and looked at her seriously. Jasmine, you need to stop calling it just a mistake. Yes, getting pregnant at 17 wasn't planned. Yes, it changed your life. But you know what else it did? It revealed your character. It showed the world who you really are. You're not defined by getting pregnant. You're defined by what you did after. You chose life. You chose love. You chose to be the best mother you could be. That's not a mistake, baby. That's a blessing. The woman from the childcare center added, Jasmine, when we saw your story, we talked to our staff, and every single person wanted to help. We have young mothers who work for us, and we have young mothers who use our services. Your courage in sharing your story has created a ripple effect. You've given hope to so many people. This is our way of saying thank you. Over the next few months, Jasmine's story continued to inspire change beyond her personal life. Several school districts across the country implemented new programs to support pregnant and parenting teenagers, providing childcare, tutoring, and counseling services. The stigma around teen pregnancy began to shift, at least in some communities, from pure judgment to a more compassionate approach focused on support and education. A non-profit organization called Espiranza's Hope was founded by a group of mothers who had been inspired by Jasmine's story. The organization provided resources, support groups, and financial assistance to young mothers pursuing their education. Within its first year, it helped over 500 young women across 15 states. Jasmine became a spokesperson for the organization, though she insisted on finishing her nursing degree first. "I can't help others if I don't help myself first," she told the founders. "I need to show these girls that it's possible to achieve your dreams, not just talk about it." True to her word, Jasmine graduated from nursing school 3 years later with honors. She was 22 years old, and Espiranza was 5. The graduation was attended by her entire family, Steve Harvey and his wife Marjorie, and dozens of young mothers who had been inspired by Jasmine's story. When Jasmine walked across the stage to receive her nursing degree, Espiranza was there, wearing a little nurse's costume, carrying a sign that said, "That's my mama." Photo of them hugging after the ceremony went viral, garnering millions of likes across social media platforms. Steve Harvey posted it with the caption, "3 years ago, a 19-year-old girl stood on my stage and told a story that made me walk off because I was so moved. Today, that girl is a nurse. That girl is still an amazing mother. That girl changed the world by refusing to let her circumstances define her. Jasmine Rodriguez, I am so proud of you. Your daughter is proud of you. And everyone who's been following your journey is proud of you. You did it." After graduation, Jasmine got a job at Texas Children's Hospital in the pediatric ward. She specifically asked to work with children from low-income families and those with teenage mothers. "I want to be there for the families who are going through what my family went through," she explained. "I want those young mothers to see me and know that there's hope." One day at work, about 6 months after she started, Jasmine was assigned to care for a newborn baby girl whose 17-year-old mother was recovering from a difficult delivery. The young mother, whose name was Christina, was alone. No family, no friends, just her and her baby. Jasmine read the chart and saw that the father was not involved. It was like looking at a mirror of her own past. Jasmine knocked gently before entering the room. Christina was sitting in the hospital bed, staring at her sleeping baby with a mixture of love and terror on her face. "Hi, Christina," Jasmine said softly. "I'm Jasmine. I'm going to be your nurse today." Christina barely looked up. "Okay." Jasmine checked the baby's vitals, noting everything in the chart, but she could feel the despair radiating from this young mother. She had felt that same despair once. Before leaving the room, Jasmine made a decision. "Christina, can I tell you something?" The girl finally looked up. "What?" "I see you over there, scared out of your mind, wondering how you're going to do this alone. I see you looking at your beautiful baby and feeling love and terror at the same time. I see you because I was you." Christina's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "I had my daughter when I was 17. Her father wanted nothing to do with us. I was terrified. I thought my life was over. I thought I had made the worst mistake possible." Jasmine sat down in the chair next to Christina's bed. "But you know what? That baby right there, she's not a mistake. She's a gift. And yes, it's going to be hard. It's going to be harder than anything you've ever done. But you can do it. And you don't have to do it alone." Christina's eyes filled with tears. "How? How did you do it?" "With help, with family support, with determination, with education, and most of all, with hope." Jasmine pulled out her phone and showed Christina a photo of Espiranza, now 5 years old, in her kindergarten class. "This is my daughter, Espiranza. It means hope in Spanish. I named her that because she gave me hope when I had none, and I promise you, your daughter is going to give you that same hope." Over the next hour, Jasmine shared her story with Christina. She told her about Family Feud, about Steve Harvey walking off stage, about the scholarship, about nursing school, about all of it. Christina listened, crying, but also starting to see a glimmer of possibility. Before Jasmine's shift ended, she gave Christina her phone number. "I'm not just your nurse. I'm your sister in this journey. You call me anytime, day or night, if you need to talk or if you need help. You're not alone anymore. I promise you that. This became Jasmine's mission. Over the next few years, she counseled dozens of young mothers at the hospital. She started a support group that met once a week, where teenage mothers could share their experiences, their fears, and their triumphs. She partnered with Espiranza's Hope to provide these mothers with resources and support. She became a voice for young mothers everywhere, speaking at schools, community centers, and conferences about the importance of supporting rather than shaming young parents. Meanwhile, Espiranza was growing up healthy, happy, and loved. She was a bright child who loved school, loved books, and loved helping people just like her mama. At age 7, when her teacher asked the class what they wanted to be when they grew up, Espiranza said, "I want to be like my mama. She helps people and makes them feel hope." Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And thank you for understanding that family isn't just the people related to you by blood. Family is everyone who refuses to give up on you and everyone you refuse to give up on. Together, we can make sure no veteran suffers alone, no family struggles without support, and no hero is forgotten. Until next time, hold your loved ones close, tell them you appreciate them, and remember, family is everything.